Good morning or good afternoon from wherever you are. I'm Creeson Agecoutay. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. Manitoba RCMP have released details about the arrest of an ex-priest for a historic sexual assault. On June 13th, Russell RCMP arrested 81-year-old Constantine Turcoing of Regina, Saskatchewan in relation to a sexual assault dating back to the early 1970s when he was a priest at a church in Leonard, Manitoba, roughly 4 hours northwest of Winnipeg. Russell RCMP received a report of a historic sexual assault on March 16, 2022. A female in her 60s reported that she had been sexually assaulted multiple times over the course of 2 years by the priest when she was a parishioner at St. Elijah Romanian Orthodox Church. At the time of the assaults, the survivor was 11 to 12 years old. Police do believe there are further survivors and ask them to call the Russell RCMP detachment. An inquest report into the deaths of 2 Indigenous men at the hands of the Winnipeg Police Service has now been released to the public. 23-year-old Adrian Lequette and 33-year-old Evan Curran were shot by police just 10 days apart in September of 2017. Police located Lequette after an assault, robbery, and car theft. When he pointed a gun at officers, they fatally shot him. Curran was shot during a homicide in progress. When he attempted to thrust a blade at an officer's head, they shot him 6 times. An expert on police training stated the officer's use of force was justified in both cases. During the inquest, both families sought legal counsel but were unsuccessful. The report author, Judge Robert Heinrichs, recommended that families be given lawyers for future inquests. A Manitoba columnist has written a book on Indigenous people called Treaties, Lies and Promises: How the Métis and First Nations Shaped Canada. For more than a decade, Tom Broadback wrote about Indigenous issues, but his opinions often upset Indigenous communities. At one point, chiefs in Manitoba accused him of racist thinking and asked for a boycott of the media organization he worked for. He's never spoken to APTN about his columns until now. T.R. Wheatley did a one-on-one interview with Broadbeck in Upper Fort Garry, an iconic place for the Métis Nation and a place he writes about in his upcoming book.
Thank you for being here with me. Can you just introduce yourself and what it is you do?
Sure, my name's Tom Broadbeck and I'm a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press, and I've been a journalist for 30 years in Winnipeg. So
you're writing a book. Tell me a little bit about your book.
So the book is called Treaties, Lies and Promises, and it's a book about the contribution Indigenous people made to Manitoba and Canada, in particular Manitoba's entry into Canada. But it's also a book about how Indigenous people have been marginalized and excluded and dehumanized in many cases, and it gets into the stories that surround colonial governments and colonial settlers. And I don't think you can understand where we're at today for many complex issues without understanding those stories and knowing those stories. You don't have to be an expert on the Red River Resistance or the numbered treaties, but I think if you want to really understand where we're at as a province and a country, you really need to have a sense of what those stories were all about.
The underlying issue here people want to know is why you to write this, considering your background and some of the columns you've wrote about my people in the past.
I wrote an apology column in the Free Press a couple of weeks ago after I was called out on social media about some of the columns I wrote 10 years ago when I worked at the Winnipeg Sun. I'm ashamed of those columns that I wrote. When I read them today, I'm embarrassed by them. I've changed my views after educating myself and learning more and talking to Indigenous people.
I mean, many people called you a racist. Would you consider yourself?
I don't, no, and I don't think I ever have been, but I drew wrong conclusions about issues such as missing and murdered Indigenous women inquiry, issues such as Gladue reports in court where the courts are being asked to consider the historical background of Indigenous offenders when sentencing. I drew wrong conclusions when the Canadian Museum of Human Rights offered Indigenous people free admission. And my conclusion was that people should never be treated differently based on their race, including Indigenous people who form a unique group of people within Canada. And I was wrong in that conclusion. And it was based on ignorance
what's that pivotal point? I mean, you can't just go from calling out Indigenous people time and time and time again, and then just suddenly, hey, I'm your ally now.
I accept that criticism. It's completely valid. I don't think there was any one pivotal moment. There's been a journey that I've been on for the last 5 to 10 years that has slowly transformed my thoughts and my beliefs.
Do you ever think about your words and how they could have spewed hate in other people who already had it? Example, we're in this city where they call it ground zero for missing and murdered Indigenous women. I mean, I could think of Sean Lamb, the recent Skibitsky. They could have been using your words to fuel themselves. Do you ever think about that?
I do now. I didn't at the time, but I recognize now that those words and those columns fueled racist sentiment and gave people a license to think that way and to behave that way. That's part of the harm that I caused.
Any of the Indigenous community, have anybody kind of helped you along the way with this book? Kind of endorsing you and encouraging you?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Chief wrote the foreword for my book, and we've been friends for a long time and developed a relationship, and I've learned a ton from him, and we talk all the time, and he enlightens me on many things. I've been speaking with the MMF, the Manitoba Métis Federation. They're reading an advanced copy of the book, and I've talked to them a lot about these issues as well.
Have you reached out to, I could think of a few, Terry Nelson, who at the time when he worked at the Winnipeg Sun, as well as Chief Derek Nepenack, who were asking for a boycott of this this media place that you worked at because of your words?
Yeah. I haven't, but I would like to. I would like to keep reaching out. Yeah.
As somebody who likes words and stuff, it was definitely well worded, your apology. It almost reminded me, though, of the 2008 apology from Stephen Harper, where it was very rehearsed, kind of saying you're sorry, but you're not sorry.
It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't. It was genuine. It's emotional. It's very emotional for me. And all I can say is people can change their minds. People can be wrong, and it's okay to admit you were wrong. And I'm admitting that I'm wrong. I'm admitting I was wrong.
According to a 2020 Statistics Canada audit, Indigenous people are overrepresented in provincial custody. Saskatchewan's ombudsman is reviewing how well a provincial institution in Prince Albert is implementing trauma-informed practices and truth and reconciliation. Video journalist Rachel May has more.
Sharon Prochler is Saskatchewan's Ombudsman and Public Interest Disclosure Commissioner. In a news release sent out on Monday, she has become aware of significant concerns at the Pine Grove Women's Correctional Centre, where 90% of those incarcerated are Indigenous. There have been complaints about overcrowding, and there were 2 deaths earlier this year.
But Pine Grove is an institution that takes care of, and I say takes care of because there is a obligation to take care of those people who are in your custody, and they take care of the most vulnerable, marginalized population in the province.
Prochler is asking anyone impacted by incarceration at Pine Grove to contact her office. The last full review of conditions in Saskatchewan correctional centres was in 2002. Prochler hopes the investigation will reveal how to improve care and practices for those in custody.
So part of what we do is shine a light on various situations to make sure that everything that needs to be done is being done.
The investigation will look at how safe and comfortable people are in custody and how truth and reconciliation principles are being used for those who are incarcerated. For Prochler, it's about hearing people's real experiences to prevent institutions from repeating mistakes.
We're not therapists, but we do always think that there's a bit of healing in every interaction we have, because whenever somebody is listened to and heard, that does restore a part of themselves.
Starting September 1st, a new position of knowledge keeper, carrier, and elders helper will be added to the Ombudsman office to provide necessary support for those seeking help. When the investigation is complete, a public report will be released with recommendations for improvement.
There's a lovely line in the 2002 report that Ombudsman Tompkins wrote, which was, people are sent to jail as punishment, They're not sent to jail for punishment, which is an important distinction.
Those in or who have been in custody at Pine Grove can call a dedicated number, visit the website, write a letter, or request an in-person meeting with a member of the Saskatchewan Ombudsman Office to share their story. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Actor and artist Dakota Ray Hebert from English River First Nation in Saskatchewan continues to make a name for herself. We'll have that story and more when we come back. Welcome back. The Manitoba Métis Federation is celebrating a big milestone in their first-time home purchase program. 1,000 families have now purchased their own homes with the financial help of the MMF. The celebration took place on the lawn of one of the 1,000th home purchased through the program. Since launching in 2019, the MMF has provided forgivable loans to Red River Métis families in Manitoba in conjunction with the Louis Riel Capital Corporation. The loans cover up to $18,000 towards a down payment and up to $2,500 for closing costs. The loan is forgiven if owners live at the property for at least 10 years. The MMF says the program has put more than $250 million into Manitoba's economy and created almost 460 jobs in the last 5 years.
There's 1,000 families in homes today who would have been renting or would have been living elsewhere today. They are building equity in their families. They have a safe place for their kids. They have a warm place for their kids to live. We know that education, job opportunities come when you feel safe and secure in a place that you live. And that's what these 1,000 homes symbolize, 1,000 families. That's what it symbolizes to me.
Whitehorse's Eric Nielsen International Airport looks a little different this week. That's due to a new welcoming sign courtesy of the government of Yukon. Designed by Nacho Dun citizen Justine Sonoya, the sign is Indigenous inspired, labeled Boreal Magic. It depicts the boreal forests and northern lights on a summer night and represents the healing energy of the Yukon. The sign is one of 9 new signs found at the territory's various points of entry, replacing the territory's old signs. Each one was created by a different Yukon artist. The government plan is to change the art of the new signs about every 5 years.
This art can be updated into the future to reflect other people's voices and stuff. So it'll become a moving and iterative sign project. So this is the first generation, and when it comes time to update them into the future, we'll be able to do it again, reflecting new voices, new visions of the territory.
Very nice. Dakota Ray Hebert has done many jobs in the arts, including being an actor, a writer, a comedian, and even a visual artist. The English River First Nation member hopes to be an inspiration for Indigenous youth who want to pursue a career in TV and film. CTV's Mick Fable caught up with her in downtown Saskatoon as she worked on her next project.
Dakota Ray Hebert is painting a mural inside a new creative space in downtown Saskatoon. The soon-to-be opened art bar will put performing arts front and center. Hebert is no stranger to the arts. She's been performing for the majority of her life, beginning in theater, eventually moving into TV and film. She says she's seen the industry grow over the years, and she's grateful for all the opportunities she's had.
Navigating the arts in general is difficult, but there's such a huge branch of Indigenous theater and Indigenous TV and film that you don't feel like you're an outsider anymore. There's not a lot of, you can choose the projects you want to be a part of, and you're not going to be the only Indigenous person on that set. And I think that that's really comforting, and that's really wonderful to know.
Over her career, Hebert has continually attempted new things. Here in 2023, she got on stage for the Canadian comedy outlet Just for Laughs. Trying new things, pursuing different challenges, and expanding your skills is something she encourages for the next generation.
If there's anything that is interesting to people, try it, look into it. There's often classes, whether they're in person or online, that you can take a look at. The library is a valuable resource. You can look at all those books that are about a topic. And yeah, go for it. Do it.
For young Indigenous people hoping to get into arts and entertainment, she says to be brave and give it a shot. And you just may be the next person on TV.
Just do it. Go for it. I'd also say just believe in yourself. Completely believe in yourself and believe in your dream and follow that dream, because that's going to be your North Star when you feel lost sometimes. And there's going to be times when you're lost. And you just got to hold on to the dream and keep believing in yourself.
The Art Bar will be opening later in 2024 with soft launches planned for August.
History has been made for the U18 Indigenous women's football national team. They won a silver medal in the Cummings division. We'll talk to Indigenous Football Canada's president and CEO when we come back in less than 3 minutes. Stick around. Over on the East Coast, Halifax 26, Charlottetown 28. Inujuak 13, Nain 10. Saguenay 26, Val-d'Or 28. Peterborough 30, Sault Ste. Marie 28. Big Trout Lake 19, Sudbury 29. Puckatawagan 19, Churchill 12. Winnipeg 29, Barons River 22. 36 in Regina, Saskatoon 30. Buffalo Narrows 21, Stony Rapids 18. Fort McMurray 23, Grand Prairie 24. Lethbridge 33, Edmonton 27. Campbell River 29, Kamloops a hot 37 there. Dease Lake 22, Smithers 26. Whitehorse 18, Rock River 11. Yellowknife 18, Norman Wells 22. Inuvik 17, Colville Lake 18. Chesterfield 14, Whale Cove 15. Arctic Bay 6, and Igloolik 9. Indigenous Football Canada may not be all that well known, but it's a national program for players who want to compete and excel at tackle football. And that program has had some recent big success during the league's second year running. For more on Indigenous Football Canada, we're joined by its president and CEO, Kevin Hart. Kevin, thank you so much for being here and being in studio with us. My first question is, for those who are unfamiliar, what can you tell us about Indigenous Football Canada?
Wow, well, Indigenous Football Canada was made from a diversity task force that was formed with myself and a lot of football experts, including ex-CFL players, current CFL officials and such at Football Canada. I was invited on this diversity task force back in 2018 by then President Jim Mullen. Since that time, we've come under the governing body of Football Canada, Indigenous Football Canada, so we're indeed a new national Indigenous sport organization here in Canada.
The U18 women's team just had some success. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, indeed. So in our second year of existence as Indigenous Football Canada, last year we competed for the first time and historically put a team together for the first time that competed in women's football. Last year, unfortunately, we lost all 3 of our games. We didn't score a touchdown at all. But this year we made some tweaks with our coaching staff. We have a great coaching staff this year that came on board, as well as support staff in its place. And with that, we secured a win over Ontario Black. They beat us 74-0 last year, and we beat them 32-21 in our first game. Our second game, we played the host New Brunswick, and what happened was last year they beat us about 50-something. And this game, we beat them 22-20, wow, coming back after being down 14-0 at the half.
And you were able to take home the silver medal.
Yes, we came up short, unfortunately, against Team Saskatchewan. They're a very big team, very powerful team. But our girls showed that they belonged on that field. And that was one of the statements that they kept saying over and over again on the field of who are we, IFC, where do we belong? We belong here. And I think that the football world, especially in girls tackle football, know now that our Indigenous girls can indeed compete at the top level here in the country.
The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs recognized the women's team's win. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers also just acknowledged the team. What does that mean to the players?
Oh, I think it was such a great experience, especially last night at the Winnipeg Blue Bomber game. The girls got to go on the field pre-game for about an hour. They were also honored on the big screen in front of everybody in a hometown crowd. It was a great win for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers last night. And then afterwards, after the game, the girls got to do a meet and greet with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So, you know, great kudos to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers as well as Wade Miller and his group over there.
I know this win is about the women's team and all of their hard work, and I don't want to get too political, but I know you did do a small shout out to the governments, the provincial governments, for not recognizing them or not putting something out there to recognize their silver medal win. What is your message to the provincial governments in supporting this team?
Well, I think for us as Indigenous Football Canada, we've been in our second year of existence now. So now we've proven that with our track record and that we're indeed here to stay. Mm-hmm. We are going to be applying for provincial and federal funding, and we're going to be looking at provincial and federal partners to support us. Just like every other football PSO that's across this country, they're supported both provincially and federally, as well as they get lottery monies from the respected regions. Unfortunately, IFC is just in the process of making all those applications after being a year or two in existence.
Yeah. Finally, many people know you as a former AFN regional chief, but you have quite a background in football, and you were even the first Indigenous person to be inducted into the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame. What can you tell us about that really quickly? Oh, geez.
Football was something that, obviously led me into my political career. It helped me in leadership and mentorship, and for me, being semi-retired from politics now, football is life for me now. Mm-hmm. I want to create opportunities and break down barriers for these young girls and these young boys.
Well, thank you, Kevin. We're certainly excited and happy for the women's team to take home a silver medal and let everybody know that, we're just as important. Thank you for being here, Kevin.
Yes, thank you very much.
And that's your midday newscast for this Friday, August 2nd. Dennis Ward is back for your evening APTN National newscast in a few hours. Make sure to join us then. From everyone at APTN National News and from our reporters and camera people across the country, hi miigwech masicho. Thank you for watching.